All right, I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Jamie Wicks, the number one ISA as voted on by me on planet Earth. Jamie Wicks, good to see you, brother.
See you too, man.
So actually, Jamie and I have been working together for about 6 years now. So he's actually one of the original OGs, I call him, of a Sims real estate group, and just an incredible human being. Not only that, great guy, father to 2 beautiful kids, and just an unbelievable guy on the phones. Just builds unbelievable trust. So we're going to open up the whole hood to that playbook today, Jamie. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to pepper you with some questions. Anybody that's listening right now, I want you guys to do the same thing. Post your questions in the chat for Jamie. There's nothing off topic. So like, there's nothing that you can ask him that we won't be happy to answer. So first off, Jamie, when we talk about like world-class service on the phones, what is that like? What are like the 2-3 things that immediately come to mind for you? Like when you're making calls and you're trying to like work your job, what are the top like 2 or 3 things that you think are most important?
Well, like with world-class service, what I'd say, first of all, is responsiveness, right? When it comes to, having these online websites and leads and stuff like that, when people are asking us questions, not making them wait, a long time to get a response. So having somebody in a role like myself allows us to be able to respond a lot quicker. I know it can be tough for agents to be out on the road and showing houses, working on some important stuff, and have these inquiries coming in from people that are hungry, right, and ready for that service. So having the responsiveness there, it's huge. Other than that, I think like just making people feel comfortable, right? Like when I connect with people, these people have just signed up on our website. Some of them, we get further down the line, but a lot of these people we are calling, from day one that they're on the website. They haven't had any kind of emails or any kind of other communications from us to help them have that little bit of trust by the time they do answer the phone. So that's where it's really important when I get on the phone with people, just to make them feel comfortable that we're not, I'm not calling them today to rush them into an appointment or into, buying a house and asking, like, grilling them on that, right? It's really about like, hey Jason, thanks for signing up on the website today. I just want to make sure that you're starting off on the right foot by getting the right listings, and just beginning there, right? And not taking the taking the pressure off of them. I actually found that when I first started doing this, when I was unlicensed, when I'd have people have their guard up when I'd tell them that I was unlicensed, a lot of times people's guards would come down and say, hey, I'm not a realtor. I'm just here to, help you get your website set up, make sure you're getting, the right listings quickly, but also that you have support when you do have questions. And I have realtors I can connect with for that, right? So I think that was one thing that I noticed early on, was like, as soon as I got people, the sooner I got people feeling more comfortable, the sooner that I was able to start moving yardsticks forward, as we always say, right? So
nice. So
yeah.
Jane, do you mind like walking us through what making somebody feel comfortable looks like in the beginning of a call? Because like 99% of the people you're calling are strangers to you, right? Like these are people you don't know, you've never talked to before. Do you mind walking us through kind of like your process, what that looks like in the beginning of how you do that? Because I think you're a master at it, and it you're able to get a lot of information from people on a first call that most people struggle even just getting through that opener.
I would say, it's a lot of it's just kind of being actually curious, right? Like wanting to know. You have to want to know what people are trying to do. I think if you feel like you're just like going through the motions and asking people a survey or an interview type thing, then it's going to be difficult. So for me, what I always try and focus on is, first of all, letting them know, hey, you signed up to the website to get value out of it, which is to get listings. So let's start there, right? So hey, you signed up on our website, and I want to make sure you're getting the right listings, in time as well. But I also want to make sure that we're not sending you a bunch of stuff that wastes your time. I know that can be frustrating, right? So let's start there. And now tell me which areas are you looking for, right? So if I get into asking them something that's really open-ended, and I always finish with an open-ended question like that, it's an easy one to answer. But then from there, I can start to connect with them on who they are. I always try and get the person to talk to me about, like, to explain who they are to me, what they're doing. It's a very easy to get people to talk about themselves, right? It's if I try not to lead off with just going too heavy into real estate stuff, because a lot of people aren't comfortable with it yet. right? So, if you try and go too quickly into those kinds of questions, you're going to get shut down more often, or you're just not going to have the same flow. But if I start asking you, Jason, questions about yourself and your family and why you're looking, or what your purpose is of what you're trying to accomplish, what are the motivating factors of that for you? We're not even really talking about like the house or whatever it is that you're looking for yet. We're talking about you and what's important to you, and what your goals are. You might tell me early on, hey, my timeline is 2 years away. Hey, awesome, right on. That means that we have a lot of time to make sure you have the right information and good support while you're doing your research, because 2 years, it actually goes by pretty quickly, right? So me getting you to talk about yourself early on in the call, being more exploratory of who you are and what's going on, that's going to allow me to get people to be more comfortable with me early in the call from my experience.
Love that. Actually, anybody listening right now, too many of you are trying to like read a script, and you have like, it's very clear that you have an agenda, right? And your agenda is like, you have key information that you want for yourself. But if you make it all about them first, build that rapport, build that trust, you'll find that the flow of getting that information is a lot easier. Am I right with that, Jamie?
Totally. Yeah. I think like as soon as I stopped worrying about everybody being a potential deal, you know what I mean? Like I put a lot of pressure very early on, that it was like, oh, I have to connect with these people. And like, this is a person that's interested in buying real estate. And so I should be able to make this happen. And so I would have like my questions that I didn't know a lot about real estate exactly, at the start when you first brought me in. So I was like heavy into these questions that I had, which were great at helping me understand what I needed to try and uncover. But it took me like really realizing like, okay, a lot of these people I'm not going to connect with, for one. A lot of these people I'm not going to be able to get, into a house with us. And I know that's like not what people want to hear right now, but as soon as you take that pressure off, you start being yourself, you start kind of taking away these pre-scripted questions, and you start asking them the way that you feel comfortable. You start to take that question and just change it a bit to be you, and you start having better conversations, right? So you take that pressure off yourself and just be authentic, be who you are, connect with people, find out who they are. It's going to go a long way.
Love that. One of the things that I hear a lot from agents, Jamie, is they're like, nobody picks up the phone. I can't get a hold of anybody.
Yeah,
What are
and
some
I
of the
mean,
things that they're probably doing wrong there? Like,
well, they're probably right. Like you have to make I make a ton of calls to get a few people on the phone, right? Like, I don't know how many dials compared to connections, but it's a lot of dials to get that connection, right? So, that's true, but it's just you have to know that and be aware of that. This is a numbers game, right? Like, if you're making fewer calls in a day, you're going to get fewer people on the phone. You're going to give yourself less of a chance of connecting with them, right? So, I think it's important that knowing that it's tough to get people on the phone, trying to get to them as quick as you can, right? So when they do sign up on the websites or however they come in as a lead, the sooner you get to them, the better. From that point on, you're chasing, but it doesn't mean it's game over. And I think that's where a lot of people just give up. It's like, I tried this person a couple times, date on the first day, didn't get them. They obviously don't want to talk to me, and then they just kind of leave it at that. Right. So like what we've done is obviously we've built systems to help us, because we do get a large volume of leads or people signing up on the website. So, having some things to support you, like automated messages and things like that can go out to people that are asking questions that you would normally be asking anyway to them as you kind of nurture along. It also helps free you up to spend more time actually making those call attempts. But what I'll often do is kind of just try and get an idea. Like if I go into a profile of somebody that's been on the website for a week, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just take a quick look and see if there's any consistency to when they've been coming onto the website. If I see somebody's been like steadily coming on at 8:30 in the morning, it's probably before work. They probably have their routine. They're checking it. If I seen that they've been on at that time 3 or 4 times this week, and I've tried calling them at like noon every time, haven't got them, well, our schedules are probably not lining up. It's not that they don't want to talk to me. It's not that they wouldn't get value out of talking to me. In fact, a lot of people want to talk to me, and they're like, yeah, I really want to. I'll get messages from people like, sorry, I haven't been able to get back to you, my schedule or whatever. Can you call me on the weekend? Right. And so a lot of times it's just knowing, like, we put pressure on ourselves, like we're doing something wrong because we're not getting people on the phone, but we're all human. We've all got schedules and stuff. And when you're chasing people, it's just far more difficult. So if you can see that on their profile, if you see any kind of consistency to when they're coming online, set a follow up for yourself for that time, right? So I'll say, okay, I know this is probably a good person for me to call at 8:30 in the morning tomorrow. Let me put that in as my first follow up of the day that I want to do, and I'll make that call to that person that next morning. And you find like it doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does too, right? So
Love that. Jamie, what are like the most common objections that you face doing this? You've been doing this for almost 6 years now. What are the most common objections you're facing, and what are the best ways to overcome them?
yeah, so I mean, the main one is usually just like, oh, we're just browsing, we're not buying for a long time, and it's usually true, right? Like it's usually an honest thing. So it's not that even that it's an objection. It's just that a lot of times those people feel like it's too early to engage us because they don't want to waste our time. They're actually trying to be polite to us and be courteous. It doesn't seem like that when they're telling us that on the phone, but that's how it is, right? So for us just to be able to say, hey, you know what? Most of our members on our website that are signed up early on are far from making any kind of real estate move, if any. For many of our members, it's just actually just trying to see if the real estate makes sense in our area, and then I'd ask an open-ended question. So, knowing that, and I do want to make sure that you do have good research over the time. Jason, which areas are you even researching? Right. And I could start with that. So you could tell me a little bit, like, I just want to get past it and get something from you that we can work off of. Right. So, just, that objection is going to come. Right. So I always tell people in our ISA calls, like, I'm more prepared for the objection than they are when they throw it at me. Right. It's not like they have realtors calling them every day, asking them questions and stuff like that. But I'm calling people every day and getting that same objection. Right. So I'm prepared for it. I know how to roll with it. Biggest thing is be confident, right? Don't be like, oh yeah, okay, like, and get thrown off by it. Just be confident. Hey, no problem, Jason. Most of our people are just browsing. That's great that you found our website to do that, and you've actually unlocked one of the most interactive websites for real estate on Vancouver Island. So I want to help make sure that you have a great experience as a research. Let's go with that, right? And go forward. We're confident. We're not phased by it, and then they can feel that confidence. Like, oh, okay. Like most times, you honestly, that's it. That's all you'll get for an objection. Some people will be stubborn and they'll be like, they might even hang up on you, right? So you're gonna get some of that, but you have to be okay with that. You have to know that when you're doing this and you're calling people and you're prospecting, like, not everybody's gonna be happy you called them. Not everybody's gonna be happy that they had to sign up on your website. Not everybody's gonna be happy that you called them at that particular time, right? But it's like you have to do that if you want to be successful. You have to be consistent with it, and you'll get results. Not everybody's going to be that kind of call. If you get in your head about it and you start thinking like nobody wants to talk to me, you're bringing that energy to your call, right? So just know, okay, this one didn't go well, done with it, on to the next one, fresh new call. That's how I approach it. So
Love it. Always come with value. Jamie, how would you overcome every website makes me sign up?
yeah, but yeah, that's right. That's usually what I say to people, right? Like, yeah, you're right. Every website is a membership website these days, but you're having to sign up on all these different websites to get the information you want. The great thing is I'm here talking to you to help get that set up for you. So you don't have to sign up on any more websites. It's all right here for you. And the nice thing is I work here in the office 7 days a week. There's one of us here that's here to answer questions as soon as you have them. So it's actually really great that you were able to find a website that is this supported. So Jason, tell me, as you're going to continue looking here, and then I just always, you always handle the objection. You acknowledge it. I understand. Yeah, most people are frustrated to sign up on these websites. I get it. I've had to sign up on them too. So you're acknowledging it all. Then you're kind of providing them like, hey, you wanted the value of the website, which is why you signed up on it. Well, now you have it, and now I'm setting you up. So, and then I always finish with an open-ended question, right? Just to move on and keep the momentum in the call.
Love that. It's so
I just
important.
keep this in front of me, Jay. This is like, I've gone from scripts to having this, right? It's just who, what, where, when, why, how.
Love that. Just
right?
simple,
And
right?
then, yeah, and then it's got LP Mama on there too, right? You got location, price, motivation, approval, mortgage amount, and if they have an agent, right? Like these are the key things that I'm ever trying to find out. So now that I've been doing this long enough, I know how I want to ask my questions, how I want to move through phone calls and stuff like that. I don't need to have a script in front of me. I just have my reminders. Like if sometimes we get talking about different things and I'm like, okay, wait, hold on, I still need to ask them this one. I have it right in front of me. All right. So
All right, let's talk about this one. So when you're having a really good call with a prospect, Jamie, right? And let's say they're telling you that they're a year away from buying and selling. You and I both know that a year literally could mean 3 weeks from now, we're putting them under contract on a house. You and I both know
Mhm.
that. We've done this long enough that we know that. And you've identified that like this is a prospect that probably we want to get in front of. I think another area that people struggle with is from having great conversation and then how to segue that to an agent or an
Mhm.
appointment. Can you give us maybe some strategic tips of things that you do in order to move that along? Because I
Yeah, for
think
sure.
somebody that tells you that and you've uncovered the who, what, where, when, why, and all that good stuff. They're saying that because sometimes people don't realize like that could happen a lot sooner, right? In their minds, they're thinking a year, but you and I both know that that often changes. So how would you handle that? Like, how would you segue it from great conversation, you've uncovered the things you need, to an appointment or an appointment with an agent?
Yeah. So you always kind of like, we've gotten all the information. So I usually try and recap a little bit and then we make a recommendation, right? You always want to have a recommendation, like something to move forward from that call. For somebody that is, there's really like, maybe they just started a new job, they still have to save up a down payment, they don't have any, help from family or anything like that. Like they're really going to be a long time. The next step might just be, okay, now I just want you to, favorite some listings online so that I can get to see a better idea of what you like. And I'll follow up with you in a few weeks just to see how it's going, right? It could be that simple, and that's the recommendation that we're making. But on their end, they're like, okay, yeah, I'll try and favorite some properties, right? So that's just like how you might move somebody very early. But somebody like that's like, hey, we're thinking about buying, we have a home to sell, we're thinking about buying something, we're not quite ready, we're probably about a year away from doing this because husband's got to retire in say March or something, or whatever, say June, right? There are things that are kind of in the way, but it's something that's going to happen, right? And so what I always like to say is like, right now the best thing you could have is somebody that's in your corner and able to give you advice and be there to support your search on a more personal level, right? So I know it might feel weird to engage with a realtor this early in the process, but there is some, you can be too late with information, it's hard to be too early with information, right? So what I would recommend is actually having one of our agents come out, give you a market valuation in today's market. Doesn't mean that there's no obligations. This doesn't mean you have to sell a home in any period of time. It's just to let you know exactly what's going on with your property right now. And by us being out there, we're going to be able to actually, give you better advice as the market moves, because it could make sense for you that maybe 9 months is better than 12 months just because we know your property better. But if we come out there in 11 months and 9 months was like the sweet spot for you, and it could have really worked for you if it was prepared properly, we're all going to be kicking ourselves being like, oh, I wish we were out here 2 months ago. And you'd probably agree with us, right? So why don't we get this started now, right? What do you have to lose, really? Right. So, and I think a lot of people, if it's like a home for sale, they feel like the stress that they have to prepare the home or do certain things like that. So I always try and take that anxiety off of them. They say, right now it's not about getting your house all ready, like as if you're going to get photos taken and go to market. We often go to homes that need a lot of, things to be stored or sold and stuff like that. A lot of clutter that has to be taken care of. Don't worry about any of that. We just want to be able to see your property in a better light, see the things that you've done that might have added value to your home, and really be able to give you better advice over the next 12 months, as opposed to, wishing that we could have given you better advice sooner in 12 months from now.
Love it, Jamie.
Yeah. And with a buyer, similar type of thing, right? It's just like, you're looking at buying, this is going to be a big investment for you. There's different things that are happening all the time. Like right now we're seeing interest rates climbing, we're seeing people's approvals might be changing. Just so many things. The market may be, softening in some spots, and none of these things, not all of these things last forever. So the best thing you can do is start having advice, like getting better information. If we understand what you're looking for and what you're ultimately looking to do, we're going to be able to give you better advice along the way. So a lot of times we'll start showing houses to people here and then, and we'll do that over the course of a year until you're ready to buy. It's not abnormal to do, and it's actually a better way to do things, right? You shouldn't feel like, oh, I shouldn't call a real estate agent until I'm ready to buy a home in 2 weeks. That agent isn't going to be able to give you nearly as good of a service as they wish they could have.
Right. You're never too early in this game, right?
Exactly, right? And what do we have to lose? I mean, yeah, we can be busy and we have to prioritize our time and stuff like that, but that you and I, Jay, and we know this is a relationship business, right? It's not about wowing people and stuff like that all the time. It's about giving people what they need, and just building that relationship with them. And the earlier you can do that, the better. That's what I love about online lead generation is, like, back in the day, people do open houses and stuff like that to get in front of people as early as they could in the process. Well, now the earliest point is online. It's like, you think of real estate today, you go online, you start looking at homes. I mean, that's the best time to start getting advice, is that early, really, right? So, yeah.
Here's a stat too: 76% of buyers will hire the first agent that they meet with.
Yeah, that's
So there you
crazy.
go. So if you're one of those people that's just looking for now kills in business, I promise you, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. If you get a good process on the buy side or the selling side, you will move a lot of these prospects that are telling you they're a year or two away. You will move them along much faster. And
Yeah.
that's a whole nother topic that we can cover. But
No,
I'm
it's true
telling you,
though.
get in front of
Yeah.
them. As soon as you've identified that you have a good, clear picture of what the client's looking for, who, what, where, when, why, all that good stuff, hobbies, occupation, it would logically make sense to get in front of them. It would
Mhm.
logically make sense. Hey, you know what? It might make sense, Kelly, for you to go out and let's go look at a few properties that you can then develop a bit of context for the market. It would help
Mhm.
me understand exactly what it is that you like and what you don't like, so that whenever the timing is right for you, I will be able to service you along the way. Because real
Yeah, we
estate
could.
is very much a premeditated thing. It's not something where it's like, okay, I see a house today, I'm buying it tomorrow. That can happen, but most of the time it's something people plan over the course of a year, 2 years, 6 months, 3 months. But time is definitely a tool for people. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times people will throw a timeline just because they don't know, there's a bunch in their mind, there's a bunch of hurdles and steps to get there. But if you have a good process and you start removing those hurdles, why would they wait?
Well, timelines are mostly arbitrary, right? Because people usually don't like uncertainty, right? So they like to structure things that are somewhat out of their control, or maybe unstructured, right? So it's easy to be like, okay, well, I have a year. That takes like pressure off of me, right? But really, the reality is I'm already thinking about that move in a year from now already, right? I'm already thinking of that. So that means that there's something that's either not working about my situation, or that I can foresee is going to be changing here in the near future. And it's likely going to happen. There could be different factors that get in the way, like anything, right? But that the seed is already there. We're already thinking about that. And even those things that kind of happen on a whim are usually because there was something that that seed was planted somewhere prior to that anyway. Like, to make a move happen, that kind of happens a little more suddenly like that. But um, most people do work with the first person that they connect with, because from what I've seen over the years with online lead generation, you connect with people, you provide value to them, you're constantly there, you're giving them those things that they want, you're answering questions. So when that house comes up that they really like and things are starting to fall into place for them, it's like a really great home comes to market, and they're like, they think everybody loves that house. Everybody wants that house just as badly as they do. And especially in the markets like we've had, where things actually are selling in a few days, they're not about to go out and start going through like a process of interviewing 10 or 15 realtors. Like, they want to get in that house, they want to get in there now. And the easiest thing for them to do is call me, that's been there in front of them, answering questions all along. Like, hey, look at this house, honey. We should go see it. Oh, yeah, give that Jamie guy a call. Like, I'm the first thing that comes to mind just because I've been there along the way, right? It's not, it's most people are get reactive, right? So it's easiest for them to work with that first person that's been providing them value. It's not, and if you're doing a good enough job on it, they don't think about having to use anyone else, right? Because we've been supportive, we've been giving them everything they need, they've been getting the right listings, we haven't put too crazy a pressure on them. We've just supported them, right? And so that's how this often goes for people, and I think that's why a lot of people do work with the first person that they connect with, because it's easy. If we have a great conversation, well, they've already taken care of that. They don't, why would they want to do that with somebody else necessarily, right? Unless we just didn't jive.
Yep.
So
Love it.
yeah.
Ryan Dash says, do you try to convert every contact you're speaking with? Or how do you determine when it's a matter of moving on to the next prospect? I like that you're trying to explore if there's a possibility of a sale before you start trying to do any selling. Can you speak to the exploration of deal making instead of trying to sell them right away? The typical first mistake agents make.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people are so appointment driven, right? Like I know for a lot of ISAs, a big thing is like having like appointment targets, and that's great. I mean, it's good to have motivating factors like that, but sometimes I think that can lead to having poor quality because they're just trying to meet these targets, and so they're starting to put people in front of agents that are maybe like just it's just not a good time to do it yet. Like I know some people I need to spend more time on that are online and give them more before we start moving them in front of an agent, right? And especially if I haven't built very good rapport with that person, like so, I don't just crush it with everybody I talk to. I get on the phone and there's a lot of people that the phone call is just after the call. I'm like, yeah, I wish that one went better. I got work to do with that person. I definitely would have been difficult at that point in time to try and get them in front of an agent with the way the call went. So I'm not trying to always go ahead and just convert everybody into appointments, and there's also people too that you just when you're talking to them that things just aren't going to work out for them right now. Like they need more time. There's a lot of people that we get that are like closer to doing things than they think they are, and then there's a lot of people that are wanting to do more than and they're further away than they think they are, right? Or they're it's just like not going to be as possible as they don't have employment, they don't have anybody to help them out, but yet they see a house that they want to have a look at, and it's like difficult, right? They're wanting that service, but we know it's like, okay, well, and that's where it comes to asking the right questions and getting to know who you have. So I ask a lot of those questions. I qualify people over the phone while I'm talking to them before I just go and send them to an agent to qualify them and then disqualify them, right? And I made those mistakes early on, Jay, that, right? Like sometimes I just didn't have the right questions I asked people. I sent them to you, you got out with them, you did it, and then you came back to me and you're like, hey, this is what you missed on this one. It's they're not ready because of this, that, and the other thing. And it's like I just didn't know what I didn't know. And a lot of the ISAs and stuff that are out there, like they won't know all these things. They're not the professional that's been doing this for a long time. That some of them are new, right? And so you have to be willing to skin your knees a bit. I know, I love that you always let me do that, and then you give me the feedback I needed. So now that I've gotten to the point that I'm at now, it's easier for me to know like which leads are the ones that I need to really lean into more, and the ones that I need to just kind of give a little bit more space and work along slower and allow like a little bit more of the systems and things like that we've built to do a bit of that work, if that makes sense, right? Like
Totally.
a lot of it comes down to how many leads you're working. We have a crazy amount of leads, right? So it's become even more and more important for me to like identify who I need to put that time into, because every bit of time I'm spending on people that I'm trying to push and hoping for the best and going for it with, you know what I mean? Like that's at the expense of other people that are ready and are qualified or are closer or have the right things in place, right? So, there's it's like mining, right? I mean, you're not just going to grab everything and hope for the best, right? You still have to kind of filter out what's good and what's not working. And that's why we have a great CRM to help us with that. I can identify those things and start leaning into my hot prospects, my active users on the website, like people like that. Those are typically where I'll spend more of my time and attention on. And usually the people that are having those buyer behaviors, not all of them, like there is a lot of people that are just hobbyists or whatever in terms of looking at real estate, but they're most of those people that are giving you a lot of those buyer behaviors, those are the people that are I'm needing to spend time in, instead of trying to call every person that's only ever been to our website once, never come back. They've been on the website for 6 or 8 months, ignore us, and trying to beat a dead horse. Like some of those things, you got to move on from those too, right? And just focus on what you can actually put your time and energy into and likely see a result from.
I'm going to say this too, for any of the agents that are working with ISAs or plan to work with ISAs, you have to understand that feedback is really, really important on the appointments you're having, right? Make sure you're communicating that. With Jamie, I never try to beat Jamie over the head when he made a mistake, because it's not a mistake. I'm like, hey, this is a learning opportunity. So I'd sit down and I would give Jamie constructive feedback, and then we'd work on, okay, for next time, how can we position that a little bit differently? And that helped Jamie become better at his role. And at the end of the day, Jamie would do the same thing with me. He would give me feedback and help me be better in the handoff process. So understand that like it's never going to be perfect. You're dealing, there's a human element to this whole thing. And sometimes Jamie can only get so much with a prospect, and it's up to me to take it through the finish line. He's done his part of warming them up. And so some of the agents sometimes are like, well, this wasn't a good deal. They're looking to do something next year. And I always thought, and I was like, Jamie, I want every opportunity where there's some opportunity that you've uncovered. I want to talk to them. I want to meet with them. Right. Like that was my mindset. And that's why I was able to sell so many houses where, you know, you have had partner agents that maybe give you more pushback, but that's to their own detriment because they're the same agents that are putting on the least amount of deals. Right. So maybe talk a little bit about like the importance of the synergy between ISA and agent, because I know that there's some really, really good synergies that you've built with some strategic partners that you have in our company. Maybe talk about some of the best practices on why those things work really well.
Yeah, it's never going to be perfect, and it's never like, well, I wouldn't say never. A lot of times it's not very linear, right? In terms of like how it all goes, right? So, you know, in a perfect world, it's like, hey, I call people, ask a bunch of questions, they're qualified, great, get it over to Jason. Jason takes it, runs with it, and then I never need to talk to them again, really. And then they just, the next thing you know, they're buying a house in the next few weeks or something. And that happens from time to time. But reality is most of what happens is me calling people a bunch of times, trying to get a hold of them, finally get a hold of them, have to spend, you know, months in some cases just connecting with them from time to time, checking in, making sure they're getting the right things, following up, staying in front of timelines, things like that. And then, you know, 6, 8, 12 months goes by. Finally, they're ready for you know, taking that next step, and I'm getting them in front of Jason maybe at that point in time. And they're still 6 to 12 months away in some cases, right? And so, but like the motivations changed. And so at that point, like I hand it over to you, Jay. You go and show them some homes. Maybe they thought they were further in the process. Something comes up, they have to change something, comes back to me, right? And it's important for us to have that communication. Like I can't just hand it over to you and be like, you be like, okay, well, this one's not really working out well, so I'll put them on my board, and then, you know, maybe I'll follow up with them in a few weeks. And I'm sitting here being like, yeah, that's going great. You know, Jason hasn't needed me for anything. And next thing you know, we're like 2 months later, 3 months later, and we're like, hey, you know, what's going on with John? Oh, you know, yeah, actually, you should check in with him. Oh, okay. Well, when's the last time? You know, we don't want to have those situations happening because that person's sitting there and nobody's helping them when we could easily have been doing that. So what I always try and make sure is when I hand over somebody, doesn't mean it's always a perfect situation. Sometimes it's coming back to me, but let me know that. Let me know what I need to do. Let's set an expectation between us of who's going to take care of what next. If you've gone out on a tour and you're showing them homes and stuff like that, like I'm going to think you've got things under control unless you tell me otherwise, or unless you ask me for something or they reach out to me, right? So having some sort of game plan, that's the best. Like me, the agents that I work best with on our team, we do that. We follow up afterwards. They put notes in the system so I can see them. I'll get on the phone often, and I'll like every day I'm talking to our agents on our team and being like, you know, what's going on here? What do we need to do? Should I call them? Should you call them? You know, and just moving things forward and making sure that person's getting support. But that is so huge to just know when I need to do certain things, or you know, let me know that you've got it. Right. So that's what I would say with the communication. In terms of the handoff, I think it's really important for inside salespeople to start setting the expectation for that handoff early on. Jay, remember, like, you know, as I worked through these different kinks over the years, a lot of times I wouldn't tell them that there was like a handoff going to happen. For some reason, I thought it's like, oh, maybe, you know, I won't tell them that right now. Like, I'll just keep helping them. And then these people get so much trust in me. And then all of a sudden I go and be like, okay, well, now I have to, you know, I'm going to get you to work with this agent here to show you these houses. And I bet, what do you mean? You're not showing us the houses? Like, well, we want to see the houses with you. We don't want to see them with this other person, right? Like, and that would be difficult because I've done a good job building trust with them, and they just weren't expecting that. It kind of came out of left field for them. So as much as they're happy, and people would often still go, and our agents would do a great job, but I realized that could be improved, right? So I started from the very first call that I talk to people, I start setting the expectation of how we work as a team, right? So by the way, you know, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get listings from our website in the morning. If there's a new listing, you can ask for any questions you have about that by clicking the request information, blah, 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 do like a little recap on that. And by the way, we work as a team. So I just want to let you know a little bit about us. We work as a team. So what my role is, I'm a licensed realtor. I have access to all the different things that any other agent does, except for I work in-house to be here as like almost like a concierge for you. But when the time comes that you have properties that you want to see, what I normally do is have one of my business partners that will be out actually showing you the homes, help and make offers. That's kind of their specialty. And it allows me to stay in here to be here and help you when you need it in a quick manner and help get the showing scheduled for you and get you the information you need so you're more prepared for your showing. Or, be networking with agents to help you find the right property, maybe before it comes to market, have a heads up on it, things like that. So by having, several people here, we've had more success for our clients, and that's what sets us apart, right? So that's where you get the best service, is you actually have several people here involved in and motivated to help you find this home, right? So I'd actually, if it's possible, like to get you connected with that agent sooner as well, just as an introduction. And then I can move into, having like a Zoom buyer consult or different things like that, depending on, how that call went, right? But so I'll start making that introduction to agents often far before. Like, I don't know how many times we've done Zooms with people that are like in the fall that are only going to be doing stuff like in like the next couple of months here, right?
Yeah.
So setting the expectation for the handoff earlier is huge. Not a surprise, right? You don't want it to be a surprise to people.
Virginia asks, I hear competing priorities. We know it's a numbers game. The more calls you make, the more connections created, obviously. But it's also important to nurture and qualify those leads beforehand. Is it quality, quantity? How do you balance these, Jamie?
Well, the problem is like we have a larger quantity, right? So like it's like, we have to go through a lot of leads on a daily basis because we generate a ton, right? And so, it's a little bit of both, right? Because, there's a large amount, but sometimes I know that like I'm not going to be able to call these people, every single one of them, as many times as I want to this week if we've had 50 leads come in and it's been a busy week and stuff like that. So that's where you do have to sometimes look at little cues, right? Like what I'll do is like, okay, I know I have 2 hours to call right now, people. I'm not going to necessarily just start at the top and work my way down. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll look at, say I have a group of 25 leads, and I'll look at, okay, who's been to the website more than once? Who's actually looked at more than one property, right? Who's looked at several properties or conducted more than one search? Like our CRM tells us that. So I often like to start off with, if I have a group of 25 people I'm gonna work through, start off with the most active people. I'll save the people that came to our website once and left and never came back over the last few days for the last part of my call, right? Because I'm getting better buyer behaviors out of those people. So they're showing me a higher quality lead, that like, I guess they're showing me that they're a higher quality lead in their activity. Doesn't mean that the person that, it doesn't mean that the person that did only come on and look at one property is not a quality lead. Like they could be a home run, right? But just if you think about the fact that you're doing this day over day, if you consistently are working on the people that are showing you the most activity on the website, just percentage wise, chances are that you're going to be working your best leads more frequently, right? And that's kind of the way I look at that. So it is a little bit of a mixture of it. I don't want to leave anybody called or focused on or anything like that. Like that's the last thing I want to do is just ignore any of them. But I will prioritize who I'm working with, or who I'm going to be calling, right? Because we do only have so much time in a day.
Jamie, how many conversations a day are you having on the phones? And then how many like text engagements approximately are you seeing in email engagements per day?
Yeah, so I'm always trying to aim for between like 20 to 25, 30 conversations. Because Jay, you know me, when I get on the phone, I get talking with people and it's like, one call can be 20, 30 minutes pretty easily, right? And so it's actually something that I have to try and focus on is like, okay, is there still value in this call, or is it time for me to like just get this person off the phone? Because we can BS for a while here, right? So but when you are consistently calling people and you're making those dials and you're getting people on the phone fairly consistently and you're having good calls, you're asking good questions, you're having good conversation, it takes a while on each of these calls. So, it can be difficult to get to 40, 50 people in a day unless I'm asking, less questions and keeping it shorter, right? So, I know for me, it's very difficult for me to ever get to 40 or 50 phone conversations in the day. It's unlikely due to the fact that I have these good calls, I would say. But so that's where I lean on a lot of texts and stuff like that, as I might be on the phone talking to somebody right now, having a really great call, and I have a second window up and I can be sending text messages to active leads on the website. I've got templates made for myself. I've got workflows that I could go and send 50 texts out at once to people. So like I know if I'm getting tied up in a lot of these activities, I can start to leverage that more today. maybe tomorrow I don't have so many people that are asking me for showings and to look into a property for them and do this, that, and the other thing. And I have a lot more time to just dial. Maybe that day I might be able to get more of those phone conversations happening, right? So it's a bit of a balance, but knowing that we have all those tools at our disposal, right? So if I am on a phone, I can still text people. I'm not like my hands are tied, right? So you got to try and be engaged and know that you can actually multitask like that, which is a challenge for me. So I'm only capable of doing so much that way, but I always try and make sure I'm doing more at all times, right? And so yeah, we use text. We use so text we could easily send out like a couple hundred texts in a day. I mean, our automated system, we have 30 some odd thousand leads in there, and everybody's on a schedule of text messages that go out at certain times. So there can be, a couple hundred texts that go out that I'm not even really thinking about. It's just in the system, right? Like that day happens to be that many people getting text. So I get texts coming in from automated texts all day long that I'm responding to, having conversations. Sometimes it's me picking up and calling the person because the response I got, right? And so it can pull you around a little bit, but like those tools are there to give you those conversations and more touch points. And then I can be more proactive with my activities that I want to do and focused on who I want to actually talk to. The active leads, people that are hot leads or that I've identified that I know I need to nurture, and people that are doing more on the website, if that makes sense.
Jamie, what's like one little cheat code that you can give everybody right now to improve their contact rate or improve, conversion, just moving things along? What's like one little cheat code that you might give as a nugget to people listening right now?
I would say if you haven't already, just creating templates and things like that for yourself, right? And having some of those already preset up for yourself, so that when I first started, I'd call somebody. I didn't know about like systems. I didn't know that I could have templates. I didn't know all these different things that these CRMs could do, right? And so I'd sit there and I'd call somebody and I'd leave a voicemail, and then I'd hang up and I'd write them an email. I'd send them a manual text message. And like I realized every time I was doing that, I was sending them pretty much the same thing over and over. So I started digging in. Okay, now I can make templates on these things. And then I started building out templates and I'd try them. And then I'd try a different one and see if it did better. And then I'd try a different one and see if that did better, until I started finding the ones that just really worked well for me. But having those templates, now I was able to just like call. Soon as the voicemail came on, I'm sending an email template. I'm sending a text template that I've got as I'm leaving the voicemail, hang up, right? I can try and bulldog call them a second time, and then I can move on to my next call, and I'm getting to more people more sooner, I guess, throughout that, right? So in the same amount of time, I can cover more ground. So that would be the first cheat code. Second cheat code I'd say would be to leverage your text messaging, right? I think that a lot of people realize a lot of people will not answer their phone, and then they'll send me a text right away, right? And then I have these great text conversations, and then I'll follow up with a call, right? But reality is like with communications, phone is obviously the best if I can get somebody on the phone. But if I don't get them on the phone, I can have great text conversations with people, right? So really lean into the text, create some different text workflows for yourself. So in our CRM, I've gone into workflows and I've created like just 2 or 3 step text workflows. So it could be for somebody that's like a non-contacted lead, or somebody that favorited a property, or certain things like that. So I could go to 15 people that all favorited a property today, send them all that favorited property workflow all at once. 15 people that favorited properties just got a text in a matter of 1 minute saying, hey, I saw that you favorited that property on our website today. Did you want more information, or were you thinking of scheduling a viewing for that? 15 all at once, instead of me having to go each one individually, because I've leaned into the CRM and figured out how I could use it to my advantage that way. So those are, I guess, the cheat codes from me as an ISA of what I'm doing to just cover more ground.
Love it. By the way, for any of our EXP partners, our coaching students, all those cheat codes we make available to you. So make sure that you guys check us out. If you're looking to really level up your game, you guys want to add an ISA department, not only can we help train them, what we can give you guys a lot of these things that we've spent thousands of hours over the last 6.5 years developing tried and true stuff that's working to improve conversion. Jamie, dude, thank you so much for making time today. Obviously appreciate you, brother, coming in on. I know today's a bit of a day off, so you jumped in here to help me out. I appreciate it very much. Some really good little nuggets in there. Guys, your questions are really important. I think Jamie touched on it earlier, but the quality of your questions will determine the quality of your answers. If you're asking very closed-ended or focused questions, your client on the other end is gonna feel like they're in an interrogation, and don't be surprised if you feel like the call doesn't go very well. If you ask very good, thought-provoking, open-ended questions, you'll notice that your prospects start doing a lot more talking, and you'll find you'll have way, way better calls. And
Yeah.
by the end of it, the rapport will be a lot stronger. So
So two things I would say about that too, Jay. Two things that you can do, like this is stuff that I would do early on, is like we've all got a smartphone. So if you're wondering how you're doing on calls, because a lot of times we're like in the moment and we're just talking to people and you don't really realize like maybe some of the bad habits that creep in. We all get them. Sometimes, you know, I'll get bad habits and I'll try and catch myself and correct those things. It happens, right? So take your phone, just record yourself making a call, right? So just listen. You're going to see yourself, the questions that you're asking people, right? You'll find if you're like leaning more towards like some of the like not as quality of questions, you know, maybe you're asking more yes no questions and things like that, as opposed to the open-ended questions that get you talking, right? So like I kind of use an example of like I could be like, Jason, so tell me, what type of property are you looking for, right? Like it could be a house or condo, apartment, or which on are all on the table. Okay, you could tell me that, right? And then
yeah,
Jason, how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms would you need, right? And then you could tell
three
me all
bedrooms,
that,
two bathrooms minimum.
yeah. What about parking, right? What would you need for parking, right? And these are all decent questions, but what if I said, Jason, could you explain to me what the ideal property would look like and what those features within that home would be? And I just asked you that question that way. You could answer all of those things for me without me asking every single one of those questions of you, right? Even though they're decent questions, but Jason, explain the house to me. What would it look like? What would it have within it? Right. And so,
Immediately, I start wanting to open up. I immediately want to start telling you what I'm looking for. Versus
yeah,
the other one, I was going to respond, but I was going to give you all 3 beds, 2 baths. And I was going to give you like very like one word. Well, I'm looking
it's like an
for
order
an
taking,
answer.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't create like rapport and trust. And then you're having to do a lot more of the talking. So you might ask 3 or 4 questions to get the same information that one good quality open-ended question will get.
Exactly. And it's not like those are terrible questions that we would have been asking otherwise. And a lot of people will ask those questions commonly and you'll get answers and you'll move things along. But, in the other way, you were able to talk to me a lot more. And then I could kind of like, if there was something that you missed, I could be like, okay, well, you've explained this and that. But what I'm wondering about is what about, the amount of bedrooms and bathrooms that you need? Okay. And tell me like what. So the next thing is like, when I ask you a question, Jason, if I ask you, okay, how many bedrooms do you need? And you answer that question, okay, well, why? Right. So there's always that second question. So that the second thing I was going to say is an activity that I would always do for myself was I would just sit down with a piece of paper and I'd write down like I knew what kind of questions I was going to ask. So then I would start writing down what were my expected answers to those questions. Right. So if I was going to say, what is the reason for your move? Let's just say it's that, right? What is the reason for the move? And then I could say, okay, downsizing. So okay, that's one, right? Maybe family's growing, that's another one. New job in the area, I need to relocate. There's all these different things that we can expect. Like most of our answers are going to probably fall within like the first 10 things we think of, right? And then from there I could say, okay, well, what would be my next question? If you answered that you were relocating for a job, how might I follow up with that? And I could do a little bit of mind mapping and like kind of predict how some of the key parts of the call are going to go based off of the different categories of buyers that we have out there. And so I could prepare myself for that better and have those better follow-up questions. So if I was asking you, you're thinking about downsizing, well, tell me a little more about that. What is the game plan around that? Just getting you talking more about that and explaining it to me. Joe did a really great activity with us. Remember like the 5 why thing or whatever?
Yeah.
And it's hard. It was like a really difficult activity. I remember when he did that with us and he asked us like, why are we in real estate or whatever it was, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like, first of all, to have like a job we enjoy. Okay, but like why? And then he kept asking those questions, and like little by little, we got deeper and deeper until we really found like really important stuff. And that's the part of the conversation that we want to get to, right? So when you ask me, or when I ask you, Jason, what kind of home do you need for your family? Okay, why? Which area? Okay, why that area? Right? Instead of just being like, okay, you want Nanaimo? Okay, why Nanaimo? Well, it's important because you've got family here, you've got friends, or you've got maybe a mom that lives here that needs help, or you've got there's these other things that are very important, right? And as you get to know that stuff, if I get to know that the reason that you're moving and that you want to be in Nanaimo is because you have a mom that's sick and she needs your help, and she's elderly or whatever it is, and we're talking about that kind of topic, as opposed to just you being in Nanaimo, like I've gotten way further with you for rapport,
Well, here's the
right?
thing,
So
right? So too many of you are going to get a lead from your ISAs and they're going to say, well, they're looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath home and they're looking in Departure Bay. Jamie would know better than that. He would be
yeah.
like, okay, so they're moving because she's pregnant. They're having their second kid. They only have 1 bedroom in the current house right now. They need a place with 3 bedrooms, right? And he would give me, he works for BC Ferries. She does this. Like he would give me the who, what, where, when, why. And he would really help me understand like their motivations and the reasons they're doing something, right?
Yeah,
You would give me like, hey, by the way, here's a sensitive hot button. Don't talk about this, or hey, be careful about this, because you took the time to really know the prospect. And I think too many times you guys aren't doing that. And I think you really need to get deeper and really understand the client or the prospect a lot better
mhm.
before you move them
What
on. Don't you agree?
Totally. It's more important to know the who and the why, right? Like really, like who's all involved in this why, and like and where, like to know that stuff as opposed to like the house exactly that they want, right? Because it's like I need to know how I can help you, Jason, reach your goal, and with all the factors in your life that are different than everybody else, that are all also looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in that particular area, right? Because everybody wants a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. That's what everyone wants, right? So, I'm like, that's not going to help me do anything different for you, right? I can send you listings, but like if I know that you have these certain things, and you need maybe an in-law suite that could work for your mom, doesn't need to be a legal suite, but it's like something that could work for that, and it was like a main level access for her that could work. When I see that property and I say, hey Jay, did you see this one? Because I was just thinking about like your mom, she'd be able to access that suite, and you had the amount of rooms that you needed upstairs. It's in that area that's close to your work. You know what I mean? And goes to the school that your kids want to go to, that you want to have them at. Like if I know that about you, that's where we're locked in, right? We're good to go here. So,
You
you
guys,
know,
if
yeah.
you were paying attention to this, like that is absolute gold that Jamie just gave you right there. What he does is, the reason he has all these questions is he's going to be able to tailor his follow-up specifically to you and your situation, which shows that he's actively listened, that they've been heard. And of course, the reason why people buy and sell things is because there's a need, right? And it needs, the more personalized it is, the easier the transaction becomes. And Jamie, you're a master of that. Like I've
Yeah.
seen it literally. Jamie will meet a stranger at the office, person walks in, he's never met them before, and he walks by them on the way to the water cooler. And next thing you know, Jamie's in a 10-minute conversation and he's learning everything about them because he's just good at being curious and asking great questions. And I think
Mhm.
that's the key to becoming a very good ISA or a good prospector, in my opinion, is being really good at being curious and understanding your client. And at no point does Jamie ever make a recommendation until he fully understands the client first. Ever,
Yeah.
right? Like you're not going to be offering a market evaluation or looking at houses until you really have a good, clear understanding of the client.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you, right? And I think, it's like people don't need help finding the house as much as before, right? Like in the past, before technology was what it was, people needed more help to find those listings and stuff like that, right? Now it's very easy for people to find listings. Like they honestly don't often need your website to find listings, because there's a million websites out there to find listings. What they need is somebody to help them with their situation and give them the right guidance and advice. You know what I mean? So it's like that's what we need to know about people, is like how do we do that for them? How do we help them? How do I help Jason with Jason's situation? Not like the house, because Jason's going to tell me which houses he likes more often, right? And then I'm going to be able to tell Jason, well, because you told me that you got kids and stuff like that, maybe this isn't the best area for you because there's this, that, and the other thing in the area, and um, you know, for the same price range, you're going to be able to find something in an area that's better. And I can make a recommendation like that and feel confident in me telling somebody not to do something, as opposed to being like, yeah, absolutely, let's go take a look at it. Let's just go take you to that like completely shitty area for your family and waste your time and stuff, right? So
I'm going to end on this. This is just a thought for everybody. If you're on this call and you're looking at your prospect list that you've been out with, and you don't know their who, what, where, when, why, hobbies, and occupations, then ask yourself, what am I not doing? Am I just an order taker? Do I really have the rapport and trust I need to get these people through the finish line? And if you want to build deeper loyalty and not worry about people going elsewhere, you have to do these basics that we're talking about today. You should never, ever, ever be out showing properties to anybody if you don't really understand the prospect, if you haven't done some level of pre-qualification by getting a better needs analysis done. And I know some of you are going to challenge me, well, like, it's so much easier to just get the appointment. And I know Zillow and companies like that teach you to be a glorified door opener, but a true professional has a really good process that they follow, and they don't jump when people say how high. And there's a way to do that effectively where you're not putting a hand in somebody's face, but it is important that you take the time to have a good process that allows you to really understand your prospects, and that will improve your conversion. It'll help you work a lot smarter and not harder. And that's really the name of the game. And you'll have to have less conversations in a day to get better results. And one really simple thing that you guys can do to really effectively measure your conversion rate is track the number of conversations you're having through phone and text per day. Just track it, and then track your results of how many sales you're doing per month. And over the course of a year, you'll figure out, if I talk to 30 people a day times however many days you did prospecting and the number of deals, you'll know that, hey, I need to talk to 15 people to get one sale, right? Maybe like Jamie, you talk to 10 people and that leads to one sale, right? Like, the better you get at your skills and the better you are at your process, the less conversations you have to get an outcome. Now, maybe some of you aren't very skilled on the phones. You might need to talk to 30 people to get that one prospect, but keep track of those numbers. And I think that'll help you. Jamie, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate all the questions. I think we got most of them answered. Guys, if you need any more information, reach out to us, info@simscoachingsystems.com. We're happy to take a look at your business and how we can support you. Jamie has a team around him that he mentors. We do an ISA zone every Wednesday as well, which is basically, we have our inside sales agents that are there to bring value, open up that playbook. So for any of our EXP partners and our coaching students, make sure you guys are taking advantage of that. And I hope this was helpful. Thank you, Jamie. Have an amazing day, everybody.
All right, guys, take care.